Okay, so we're going to have a look at the other elasticities now. So yesterday, or last time, or on the other one, we had a look at PED. And what we're going to do now is to look at the other three elasticities that you need to know something about. These are PES, price elasticity of supply, YED, income elasticity demand, and XED, cross elasticity demand. So we take them in turn. I mean, the key point about these is that you need to be aware of, the sign, pretty much in all cases. And what we said yesterday is that if you have a plus elasticity, then all that means is that there is a positive correlation. And what that means is that an increase in A leads to an increase in B, or a decrease in A leads to a decrease in B. That's all the plus sign means. A minus sign, it doesn't mean that demand's gone down or supply's gone down. It doesn't mean anything in that sense. It's just a negative correlation. And what that means then is that an increase in A leads to a decrease in B, or a decrease in A leads to an increase in B. And it's very important to be aware of how those signs tell you something about the nature of the relationship between the two variables. And you'll see that it's particularly important for income elasticity and cross elasticity demand. But first, let's have a look at PES, price elasticity of supply. So this one simply shows, it shows the responsiveness of supply to a change in price. And is measured, therefore, by the percentage change in quantity supplied or supplied over the percentage change in price. So again, we'll have elastic supply if that's between +1 and plus infinity, so +2, for example, which would mean that supply changes twice as much as the change in price. Or it might be inelastic, in which case that's going to be 0 to +1, for example, plus 0.4. That would mean that supply changes by 0.4 times as much as the change in price. So 10% change in price would lead to a 4% change in supply. Price elasticity of supply is one that people do tend to get confused about, in terms of what it's really showing. And basically, the way you want to think about price elasticity of supply is it shows how easy is it to increase supply if you're offered a higher price. So generally, if I offer you more money, for what you're making, well, you presumably want to supply more because there's a profit motive and so on. So generally, we're saying, suppose price goes up by, say, 10%. Do we get a big increase in supply? So in other words, is it easy to increase supply? In which case, we'll have price elastic supply. Or do we only get a small increase in supply? In which case, we'll have relatively price inelastic supply. We'll get it, because it's quite difficult. So when we look at the factors that affect that, then we're saying, well, what makes it easy or what makes it difficult? And you could apply these to labour markets as well. Basically, if I offer you more money, it's going to be difficult in the short run. So it takes time, obviously. So we know that in the short run, there's at least one fixed factor of production. So therefore, it's going to be harder to increase supply in the short term. How long it takes, the length of the production period. So a lot of these questions tend to be on things like, I don't know, olives or things, where if you plant a tree, it's going to take years before you get any more. So the length of the production period, especially in things like agriculture, that's going to tend to lead to inelastic supply. Because, although supply can be volatile, although supply can change, that doesn't make it elastic. Elastic says, if you want more of it, can you have more? And the answer in agriculture is probably not, or at least not for some time. Things that tend to be elastic, can you hold stocks? So can you store it? So one of the problems with things like fresh raspberries is they can't really be frozen, they can't really be stored. So if you want more and it's outside of the growing season, well, that's tough shit fundamentally. And then, is there? I mean, so kind of, you could think about the nature of production. So and one important question is: do you face diminishing returns, or is there a capacity limit? So some things have, so things like downloads or stuff, Spotify, they have no capacity limit, and therefore it's really easy. It's really easy to increase supply, and therefore, supply will be comparatively price elastic. So what does that look like? So we look at it, if we look at it diagrammatically, then we can say, well, something that's totally impossible to increase the supply of. So if price went from P1 to P2, there are certain things that you just can't increase the supply of fundamentally. Like things that aren't being made anymore, like Picassos or something. Then even if the price goes up, supply will stay the same. So you'll end up with supply like that. And along that one, price elasticity supply is equal to 0. It's totally inelastic. Some things, if price rises, you might be able to have a few more, like that. So supply, instead of going from A to B, supply goes A to C. So that one is inelastic. Some things, it's really easy to increase supply. So supply could go all the way to D or something. So instead of Q1 to Q2, it now goes to Q3. So that would be an elastic supply curve. And then something like Spotify has completely elastic supply. So PS technically equals infinity on that one. And because there's no limit at all. Okay, so calculations work the same as PED. It's except that the sign is plus. So I'm not going to go into that particularly now. If we take the other ones, then, if we take income elasticity, this one's fairly straightforward. So in this case, it's income elasticity of demand. So what that one shows you is, does an increase in income lead to a big change in demand? In which case, it's elastic. Or does it lead to a small change in demand, less than proportional, in which case it's inelastic? But added to this, there's also the possibility that an increase in income, it might lead to an increase in demand, or it might lead to a decrease in demand. And likewise, a decrease in income, it might lead to an increase in demand, or it might lead to a decrease in demand. So that then gives us, a variety of categories of income elasticity that we might want to think about. So with income elasticity demand, we're saying, well, the sign might therefore be positive, or it might be negative. Positive means that a decrease in income would lead to a decrease in demand, or an increase in income would lead to an increase in demand, and that would be pretty normal behaviour. So those are called normal goods. On the other hand, it might be the case that in a recession, demand goes up. In normal times, when income's rising, demand goes down. Those things, therefore, it sounds like when income rises, you don't want to buy them. So those are called inferior goods. And then in terms of each of these can be either elastic or inelastic, simply depending on whether demand changes more than proportionally or less than proportionally. So income elastic would be +1 to plus infinity, and normal. Inelastic would be 0 to +1. Inferior elastic would be -1 to minus infinity, so like -7 or something. Inelastic would be 0 to -1. -0.5 or something. So really the key thing here with income elasticity is simply the sign. If it's positive, we have a normal good, which you can then explain. If it's negative, we have an inferior good, which we can then explain. Elasticity is the same as usual. If it's greater than 1 in either direction, so if it's -2 or +2, they're both equally elastic. If it's less than 1, in the sense of close to 0, plus 0.5 and minus 0.5, they're both inelastic because it means that demand changes only half as much in this case as income. The formula being, of course, the percentage change in demand over the percentage change in income, because all those formulae are the same. Quantity is always on the top. And then the last one because I'm going to overrun again. The last one is then cross elasticity demand. And what that's looking at is looking at the relationship. It looks at the impact of the change in the price of one good on the demand for another good. And where people go wrong with this is they think that it shows, the relationship between the demand for one and the demand for the other. And it doesn't. It's the price of one product with the demand for the other. So it's measured by the percentage change in the demand for A compared with the percentage change in the price of B, or the other way around, price of A, demand for B, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, that's what I wrote up there, didn't it? Yeah, so if we go that way around. And again, this can be positive or negative. So it could be, and this depends on the relationship between products. So suppose we got two brands of beer or something. There's an increase in the price of, I don't know, Carling or something. Then what that means is that people are going to buy more Carling. No, they're not. They're going to buy less Carling. Sorry, there's an increase in the price of Carling. That's going to lead to a decrease in the demand for Carling. And as a result, what's going to happen is that people will switch away, and they will buy, they'll buy more Peroni or something. So what we can see is that an increase in the price of this one leads to an increase in the demand for that one, and therefore we have positive cross-elasticity demand, and those two products are substitutes. And people always get this one wrong. So with cross-elasticity, double check using an example. Just use an example that's straightforward to you and just say, does this make sense? And remember, it's the price of one and the demand for the other. The reason that people get it wrong is they think about the demand between the two products. Or alternatively, we might have products that go together. So we might argue that kind of a decrease in the price of, I don't know, iPhones or something. New iPhones. More people will buy iPhones, and therefore there'll be an increase in the demand for cases. And again, so we look at the cases to protect your phone is negatively correlated with the price. Therefore what we'll have here is we'll have a negative cross-elastic demand, and then we have complements. Products that go together. So just be careful with that one. Just in terms of the overall elasticity. So if we just look at that, then what we'll then see is that if that's price and that's quantity, for substitutes we said that as the price of one brand goes up, people will buy more of the substitute. So we'll have that type of relationship for substitutes. Whereas we said that as the price, as the price, we said with iPhones, as the price goes down, we buy more of the case. Therefore we have a negative correlation like that. And that's pretty much it for that one. Any questions? Just send me a message.